thing. Go to seafoamworks.com. You can order up there. It's another fine product from Seafoam. Bugs be gone.
Could Jay Kolls please join us? Jay is a Cracker Jack reporter with 5 Eyewitness News. And Jay, I want to be astonished, but I'm not. You have discovered 60, listen to this number, 62 investigations are underway in the Walz administration from the Department of Human Services involving tens of millions of dollars that supposedly go to Minnesota child care centers. Is the whole state capital just a den of thievery?
You know, it's interesting, Joe, what you have here, or at least what it appears to be, right, is we're all familiar with the Feeding Our Future program, which is actually the federal child nutrition program. It just has the moniker Feeding Our Future,
right? Because
that's the name of the group. But so you have the child nutrition program, tens of millions of dollars. What I was tipped off to by some people at the Capitol was this separate program called the Child Care Assistance Program, or CCAP.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got Feeding Our Future under the Department of Education.
Mm-hmm.
They allocate the money from the federal government.
All fraudulently.
Quite a bit of it, $250 million of it. Then you have the CCAP program under another government agency, the Department of Human Services, at roughly $34 to $40 million a year that goes out. Again, federal money allocated by DHS. Take a look at last night's story that we aired. As I was looking into the daycare centers in the CCAP program, and there's quite a few of them, I looked at the top 10 money earners. And out of those top 10, I could have run a story on all top 10 last night, having what appears to be lax or forgiving oversight. I only had time to focus on 2, but if you notice, the third one I focused on at the end was a guy by the name of Abdelkadir. I just came across it as I was researching. Abdelkadir Kadaye, right? In 2017, under the Department of Human Services CCAP program, he opens up a daycare center.
Mm-hmm.
From the time, Joe, he got his license in 2017 to the time they shut him down in 2021, he had nothing but regulatory problems, and some of them very serious, endangering children, the words of DHS inspectors, not mine. And it took him 4 years to finally shut him down and cut off the spigot from CCAP money, not before he got $1.8 million. This is really significant, right? Because he's now kicked out of the DHS program in 2021 after 4 years of basic problems, and some severe, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's done. A year later, 2022, he's now in the Feeding Our Future program under the Department of Education.
God.
So what it shows, at least in the one case I've found, and I've been told by some sources in the court system, federal court system, that I found one. Apparently, there's more. That some of the folks connected in Feeding Our Future are actually connected to other government programs under the umbrella of other government agencies. I guess, Joe, what it shows is he gets kicked out of DHS's program, and no one from DHS is sharing with MDE, Department of Education, hey, if this guy comes applying for money from you guys, be aware we kicked him out of our program. And maybe there's a red flag. You don't want to get him in another government program because he leaves CCAP at $1.8 million, goes over to Feeding Our Future, is charged with stealing $1.1 million, and pleads guilty to wire fraud.
Jay, it gets another interesting aspect of this is these Walz appointees who run these agencies. Heather Mueller, in the case of the Department of Education, she left just as the feathers were going to hit the fan. And now, help me, who's the Department of the Health and Human Services head? She also just left.
Yeah, she just left. Yes.
These are Walz people. Walz Walz is the mafia boss of a theft ring.
I mean, these are his cabinet
Allegedly.
appointees approved. Yeah. These are his cabinet appointees approved by the legislature.
Right.
So yes, it's certainly under his watch. I will tell you this: I had been pressing DHS for a couple of weeks. I knew this Abdikadir Kadai had been kicked out of the CCAP program, but I didn't receive that 80. I kept saying, "Can you please tell me why?" And I'd like to know why he was kicked out. I got that 86-page report of the 4 years of regulatory action. He had 86 pages of regulatory reports over 4 years on his daycare center. 86 pages, Joe.
Right.
And I didn't get that thing until 5, 6 o'clock last night, and we were scheduled to go on at 10, so it's a tight thing. And so toward the end of the story, as you noticed, that's when they finally confirmed for me that each agency has what's called an Office of Inspector General. The Inspector General for DHS confirmed 62 investigations into daycare centers in the CCAP program. Again, and the interesting thing is, both these programs, the Child Nutrition Program, or Feeding Our Future as we know it, the Child Care Assistance Program under DHS, all designed to help who? Low-income families with children.
Okay. It's Jody Harpstead I was thinking of. So Heather Mueller and Jody Harpstead, they both flee, leaving behind the problems. But here's something else. I'm going to conclude with this. Jay, I watched the report last night, and you went to a couple of these supposed child care centers. They didn't look fit to be child care centers. All of them were empty. Many of them had graffiti on the walls. The doors were locked. They were dystopian industrial doors in buildings that you wouldn't put a kid there to save your life. It was all a scam. It's for most of these daycare centers, it's been a scam.
Well, I can tell you this, Joe. I looked at the top 10 daycare centers in terms of funding for CCAP. I thought, I have this tip. How do I narrow it down? Well, I'll take the top 10 daycare centers who've received the most CCAP money, tens of millions.
Right.
And out of those 10, I visited all 10 like that, Joe. I just didn't have time last night.
Right.
Out of the 10, all of them, I had trouble finding, locating the owners, the operators, the license holders, and I had trouble finding any evidence of children being there or any. So I can't prove that. All I can tell you is it was apparent no one was around. And what I did, Joe, was I took 3 separate days. Once I went in the morning, once I went in the afternoon, once I went in the evening, because daycare centers can have varying hours.
Right.
And so on every occasion, 3 separate days, 3 separate times of the day, 10 different daycare centers, I couldn't find any evidence anyone was around.
Nobody to be cared for.
And so for the sake of time in the television news story, I took the 2 that had some of the most egregious oversight problems. The one center, as I told you, in the story last night, had 95 violations in 3 years.
Right.
And a lot of them serious, and they still were receiving CCAP funding as they were placed on a conditional license. It got so bad.
See, that's the part I don't understand. The
Correct.
Department of Human Services had sanctioned these places, but that didn't stop them from still getting the money.
Correct. And it's important to note for your listeners, when they place a daycare center on a conditional license, and this place was on a conditional license for 2 years, that means they're one step away from being revoked, having their license revoked. Yet, for those 2 years, they collected close to $3 million.
Kenny's got a question. Kenny's got a question for you.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, actually. Jay, did you find any legitimate daycares that are accepting CCAP money?
Well, I can't prove or say any of them are not legitimate, Kenny. What I can tell you, out of the top 10 who received the most money from CCAP, all I can tell you is when I visited them, I didn't get any answers at the door, and I didn't see anything happening. So
The doors were locked.
Yeah, well, and the one that I showed you with the big steel door, you know, where I knocked.
Yeah.
That was down a very narrow hallway, as you could see, and it had and that door was kind of like, almost like, you know, a jail cell type door. It was heavy, you know, steel. I mean, that thing was solid, and you notice too, guys. I mean, no security cameras, no windows, no.
A lot of fun for the kids.
Yeah. Nobody to greet you. Like if you go into most daycare centers, especially if they don't know you, they want to, you know, who are you and what are you doing here? How, you know, can I help you? I didn't get any of that, and I just thought the whole setting seemed off.
Jay, if those were legitimate daycare centers, you wouldn't have gotten as far as you did.
Right. They rush out to greet you.
You would have been held up on the street, and you would have had your ID required, and they would have said, "What are you doing here? We have children present. Why is this camera here?" You didn't encounter anybody.
No, well, you
found one woman who said, "Oh, they're here at night."
Yeah. Well, what was interesting about that, if you notice, when she said, I said, "Well, how many kids do you have here?" And she said 80. And if you notice, my head turned to the building because I looked at it and went, in my head, I'm thinking, "Wow, where would you even put 80 kids here?" I mean, that was that.
When is there going to be a part 2 of this?
Well, we're going to do a little more tonight. Some folks at the Capitol, the Republicans, want to say something about it, and I thought I would try to get into that 86-page report on the guy with connections to Feeding Our Future to see what else was in there over the 4. Literally, and it's in that file. DHS even says when they reprimand him, they say from the time you opened in 2017 until 2021, you've been nothing but a problem. So,
Jay, we'll all be watching. It's great stuff, and I appreciate it.
There's a good chance, Jay, that somebody will drop off a grocery bag full of cash for you to shut up.
And when they do, I've given up all ethics, Jay. And when they do, you split it with us, and we'll just keep talking about it.
Take the money and run, brother.
Why do you think you did the story in the first place?
Well, you know what, guys? With the cost of groceries, could they just give me the groceries instead of the cash?
Thank you, Jay. I'd watch this if I were you. It's amazing. Well, here's another wrinkle. In the meantime, these pouting adult children refuse to continue to show up at the house, so they can't have meetings on fraud.
You need to follow Marion Rarick because she's been all over these last couple of days.
Is sitting there. I'd like to hold a meeting about fraud, but we can't because we're not allowed to.
But meanwhile,